Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Tati back with another review of Dark Side of the Ring, but this time it's Season 2, Episode 8, Cocaine and Cowboys, the Herb Abrams story. Now, we didn't get a new episode this week, so I decided why not go back to Season 2 and pick up from where I left off of. Now, when I think of Herb Abrams, where do I even begin? This guy was absolutely insane, but I do give him props for having making his dreams come true of owning his own wrestling promotion, even though it was not as successful as he would have probably liked to think. Now, watching the show, I was reminded of someone. Guess who? Tony Khan. So Tony Khan also was a wrestling super fan who came up with his own promotion as well. He had no experience and was able to take nothing and make it something. I can give props on that. However, both of these guys have felt like they can compete with the WWE, and that's just something that I really feel like is just not possible. The UWF was around for like 6 years, and Tony Khan's AEW has only been around 4 years. If they just spend more time focusing on just making themselves better and just breaking their own records or whatnot and not worried about WWE, they could possibly have been way more successful at this point. But let's get into this review. So Herb Abrams came up with the UWF in 1990. Stands for Universal Wrestling Federation. Now, he hit up John Arezzi, who was one of the first people to have wrestling conventions. Now, at the convention, he has wrestlers from far and wide going to be there. Now, Herb, he calls John and he's like, look, I got a wrestling promotion starting up. I'm looking to recruit some wrestlers and I want to come to the show and not only just promote UWF, but I want to get some guys to sign with me. Now, John is like, who the hell is this whack job on the phone thinking he got a wrestling promotion? So Herb tell him, call Bruno Sammartino. He gonna let you know who I am and what I'm doing. So John calls Bruno and Bruno confirms about the UWF and Herb. So he gives Herb a chance to go ahead and promote the UWF at this event. Now, he's over there. He's telling everybody he's a businessman who's starting up his own promotion. Now, people, they're kind of excited about this because, you know, Vince McMahon had already swept through the territories. People are looking for jobs. People are looking for something promising to do in the world of professional wrestling. So people were excited, but not really sure if this guy was legit. Now, Herb was only telling people that he was a businessman and had zero experience when it came to professional wrestling. So that made people a little hesitant on joining the promotion. So most people till this day didn't even know what Herb was doing. But it turns out that one of his best friends who was on the show said that he had a plus size women's company called I'm a Big Girl Now in New York. So also his father dealt with clothes as well. He has several stores or whatnot successfully in Manhattan. So maybe that's where some of the money came from as well. Now, fast forward to August 26, 1990, they're at the convention, and at this convention, he had already signed a few wrestlers to be part of UWF, and they're even working an angle at a press conference at the convention. So now people are feeling like, okay, this is legit. He got people signed. He have something going on. So people felt a little bit more comfortable if they wanted to go to UWF because they actually start seeing something coming to play right in front of them. Now, while he's over here talking about people that he announced, he had people like Dr. Death, Steve Ray. We had Bruno Sammartino, who's doing commentary, Lou Albano doing commentary as well, Mick Foley, Chief Strongbro, Paul Orndorff, Bob Orton, Dan Spivey. Now, a lot of these names, obviously, at this point in 1990 had pretty much already been past their prime, but just hearing that these people who's already been somewhat established in pro wrestling was there, people felt better. Now, here's where the red flag came in. While he's talking about the people that he signed, he went and said, oh, yes, we also signed Bruiser Brody to a contract. Bruiser Brody had died in 1988. So now there's the first red flag right there. Now people are like, wait, Bruiser Brody? Like, what the hell? Has he resurrected from the dead? Now, it just seems like he was just talking out of his mouth and ended up saying someone's name that obviously is not going to be signed. And even though there were a little bit of red flags, people still felt like there was something a little more promising with Herb and the UWF. So they went along with things, and obviously things did get worse as time went by. So October 1st, 1990 was a debut episode of UWF Fury Hour. It was on cable, and the first show was sold out. Yes, it was a small venue, but it showed some promise that people did care and want to see a new wrestling promotion. Now, here's something that everyone on the episode was saying as far as starting to work in UWF that reminds me of AEW today, is that the wrestlers felt like they had creative freedom and that things were not as uptight as it was in WWF. Now, a lot of wrestlers that were in the WWE that are now in AEW have said this very same thing, that they have creative control and that they have some freedom and things aren't all bullshitty like it is in the WWE. And it's just kind of crazy how there's some comparisons here, and I just hope it doesn't go under like how UWF did, but it really reminded me of what I've heard other people say in their interviews. Now, he started getting some views and people are coming to the show. He has some good wrestlers signed with him. So he decides to meet with Vince McMahon. So basically his territory is in California. So that's in the West Coast. So he goes meet with Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon gives him the time of the day and meets with him. And he's like, look, I got the West Coast on lock. So if you need someone to help promote the WWF over where I'm at, I'm your guy. And I think he was waiting for Vince to say, well, you know what, I can promote you guys, like, you know, a trade-off thing where we'll both benefit from that. Instead, Vince just looks at him like, who the fuck is this? Get the hell out of my office. Now, Herb was so offended by this that he decided that he was going to take the WWF on a national scale and just expand the UWF into something that would potentially be bigger than the WWF, and that was one of his first big mistakes. So now on the show, we have an interview with Marty Yesberg. Marty had experience with being a wrestling manager on and off screen, and he wanted to work with the UWF. Now, Herb had flew him and some people out to Cali, and he had got him a 2-bedroom hotel in Beverly Hills. Now, when Marty walked in that room, he's like, whoa, Herb gotta be legit if he's getting me a room like this. Now, all they were doing was supposed to have a meeting, and he sat in that room for hours waiting for Herb to come. Then later on, Herb busts through the doors. He got 2 hookers on his arms, and they walk in, and at first he's like, well, what the hell is going on? Now, one of the hookers ended up sitting on his lap, so I guess he calmed down for a little bit. Up until Herb took out a big ass bag full of cocaine, put it on the table, and started lining that shit up. And now he's like, whoa, I did not come here for this. He's absolutely horrified because now he thinks something's going to happen to him, especially since the room was booked under his name, even though Herb had paid for it. Now, he doesn't end up doing anything. What he ends up doing is staying in the room, not saying anything, listening to Herb talking about, you know, bullshit and wrestling, and he watched him have a threesome with those 2 ladies, and there was pretty much nothing he can do about it. And did that stop him from signing with the UWF? Nope. He worked with them for years. So on November 5th, a month later after their debut, we have Andre the Giant debuting on UWF. Now, this was a huge deal. Andre was having issues with the WWF, so he left since there were some differences. So now UWF was able to take him and sign him. And Herb was letting everybody know on that tape, and hey, we signed him. Like the ink was on the paper and it hasn't dried out yet. And Vinnie Mac has seen this, and he's like, Oh, hell no. He cut a big fat check to Andre the Giant to make sure he can bring his ass right back to the WWF. And guess what? That worked. Now, Herb was so furious about Vince McMahon doing that. He was absolutely upset. And I can understand. Someone like Andre the Giant is a huge draw. Probably not the best in the ring, but people would definitely tune in to see what Andre would be doing at UWF. He was really, really upset. Now, Herb had a championship title belt, the UWF Sports Channel TV title. Now, he wanted wrestlers, if they were holding this, to hold it a certain way so that the letters F and U can show, and that was a direct message to Vince McMahon, as if Vinnie Mac was watching their show. So now time has passed and things are not looking so great for the UWF. Herb is just a fan, not a booker, and he struggled to book the shows and the wrestlers correctly. And he even got to the point where he put his own damn self in the storylines, and that didn't help at all. Then he started getting into the UWF merchandise and also with cookies. But guess what? When it came to the cookies, he had wrestlers, and certain wrestlers had certain flavors of cookies. But Herb decided, we're not just getting cookies named after wrestlers, we're also going to get one of me. So he had a cookie called the Herbie cookie. Does anybody give a damn about the promoter? Absolutely not. So he went in and I guess put a little bit of the spotlight on himself by coming up with the Herbie cookies. Now, then he decided to take things up a notch after the cookies and decided, you know what? We're going to have our first pay-per-view, the Beach Brawl. And you guys, it was not pretty. So now we're gearing towards the Beach Brawl. And they're usually in California. This time decided to take the pay-per-view to Florida. Now he decides to get the venue called the Manatee Civic Center in Palmetto, Florida, which is more of a smaller town. Now, people who worked with the company was kind of disappointed because they hoped that he would have gone to a more populous city like Miami, maybe even Tampa or Orlando to do this, and rather than going to a small city. So this venue had a capacity of 4,000 seats, and this was also a venue that the WWF had used, so he felt like, well, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it too. Now, during the days of it coming to the pay-per-view, Herb was getting fucked up on drugs all over Miami, partying and just living out his life, and his best friend ended up finding him, and he was in really poor shape, and he told him, look, you need to go to rehab right after this pay-per-view. There's just no way you can continue living like this. So now it's the day of the pay-per-view, June 9th, 1991. Hardly anyone showed up. They claimed that the attendance was 550 people. I think they counted the production and everybody else that was working to get that number, because if you do look at the pay-per-view, not only is the lights dimmed, so you can't really see. Well, you can see, because that's the thing though, you can see how bad it looked, but it was dimmed down so it doesn't look too bad. But there was not a lot of people there at all, and the buy rate was 0.1, so that was like less than 1,000 people that ended up buying this pay-per-view. So all in all, it might have been less than 1,000 people that ended up seeing this show live to begin with. So that was considered to be a huge failure and is considered to be one of the worst pay-per-views of all time. Now, I did take a look at the lineup. I see for the main event, we had Bam Bam Bigelow versus Dr. Death C. Williams. So I don't know. I'll check it out and see how it came out. I know the buy rate was really bad, but was the pay-per-view so bad? I don't know. I'll check it out and see. Now, with the failure from that pay-per-view, the money was not coming in and checks were bouncing. Now, Brian Blair talked about one time where he went to go meet him after the pay-per-view because he was owed a lot of money. When he goes to the hotel, there are already 2 women in bed with him, and he's naked, cocaine all over him and the girls. And he just wants to know where the hell his money is at. So he let the girls leave, and before they leave, he go and get his checkbook, Brian sees that he has two big bags of cocaine on the nightstands, and he's cutting out a check for each girl for $2,000. Those checks probably bounced too, but Brian was like, if only he could be paying his employees this quickly, then these guys would be able to have some money to take care of their families and themselves. And it's just absolutely insane to see how the money wasn't coming in, and he could not fulfill the promises that he made. And it only had been a year or so since the UWF had launched. This was not looking good. Wrestlers were refusing to work since they were not getting paid. So the financial situation was getting worse at the UWF. We had one show in South Carolina where the TV crew approached him around noon and told him if they don't get paid by 4 o'clock, they're packing their shit up and leaving. Now Herb was like, don't worry, I'll get the money for you guys. 4 o'clock came and they approached him again, and he had nothing. And this time, they were really ready to go pack their things. Now Herb told him to go to their office. He wanted to hear something. So he gets on the phone, calls his bank, put it on speaker, and have the teller say what his balance was in his account. Now the bank teller did confirm there were several $1,000s in the bank account, and that reassured everyone that yes, that there's money and that they will be getting paid. Now, what they don't know is that Herb had 2 bank accounts. One where there was all those millions of dollars, and the other is where there was nothing in there and all those checks kept bouncing. So they had no idea that there was another account, and that's where the money was supposedly coming from. So now, after the show, he convinced everyone to take a check. So everyone took a check. They already heard what the balance was in the account, so they thought it would not bounce. Sure enough, those checks bounced, and the crew found him, and they threatened to throw him off a building. You guys know that didn't happen. So since the money isn't coming like they used to, Herb has now resulted to going to small towns and going into small venues since he can't go to the venues that he used to go to. Now, during this time, his drug use got much worse, and he was showing a lot of paranoia. He would always think that people are recording him, so no matter where he went, he would check to see if there were any recording devices or if people were around waiting to do something to him. He would always check cushions and pillows and check to make sure that there wasn't anything there that would be recording him. One of his friends even talked about one time being in a hotel room with him, and he's naked, only with cowboy boots, and that's pretty much all he ever wore, was always cowboy boots. And he's at the door looking through the peephole. All you see is ass and boots, and he's looking to see if someone is on the other side of that door listening on him, and there was never anyone there. Now, one particular night, Herb decides to take out that handy dandy checkbook after hooking up with a prostitute. Now, they're in the room, he's paying her, he takes out the checkbook and he's gonna write her a check, and she's like, hell no, I am not taking no check. Where's the damn cash? He doesn't have any cash. He's trying to convince her to take it. She leaves the room, and seconds later come back with a big ass dude, most likely her John, and he's ready to beat his ass up. Now, Herb, he puts on his boots and he runs out through the window, and he's running all naked through LA and absolutely making a spectacle of himself. Now, he was definitely feeling a lot of pressure, you know, having issues financially with the wrestling promotion, and also he was getting into shady businesses with other people outside of wrestling. That just made his life so much worse. So Herb has taken inspiration from Vinnie Mac once again after seeing the success of WrestleMania 9 in Las Vegas. Now, I still think that's one of the worst WrestleManias, but he decides, you know what, if they can do something big in Las Vegas, he can too. He decides to rent the MGM Grand and to have the Blackjack Brawl, and that was on September 23rd, 1994. Now, he is expecting a sellout crowd. He is expecting to have something absolutely huge that they have not been able to do before. Now, the night before the pay-per-view, he has Mick Foley come into his office. He has like one of the grandest suites over there, and Mick is absolutely just in awe with how great things are. However, he's like, hey, I'm calling you over to let you know that I have an idea that people are going to lose their minds about at the pay-per-view. So Mick thinking that something crazy is going to happen, like they're working up some crazy angle that's just going to make everybody keep talking. And it turns out that what everybody was going to talk about was his ugly yellow ass boots that says UWF on them. And it's just like, what the hell? Are you not concerned about this actual pay-per-view? No one cares about your boots. Now, the day of the pay-per-view, they only had 600 people show up. And guess what? 16,000 empty seats. So it was not even a successful show. Now, the place was damn near empty, and Herb didn't really seem to care. He was still up and lively throughout the pay-per-view. He just wanted people to know that he's still having a good old time regardless who showed up or not. And that was one of the last venues that they had where people was just like, you know what, this ain't worth it. So now fast forward to July of 1996. Herb is working in the office in Manhattan, and he's away from UWF, even though they're barely making it at this point. Now, on July 17th, 1996, a friend of his come over with a camera and is filming Herb in his office. He seems to be in good spirits. He seemed to look sober and doesn't really seem to be having issues going on. So people felt a lot better about how Herb was doing. But right after that recording, he went missing and people could not find him up until July 22nd, where he was found dead. Now, here's the thing. On that day, he has some hookers over at his office. He was covered in baby oil and cocaine, and he was naked, chasing these girls around with a baseball bat. He is destroying furniture and just swinging left and right. The police get there, and he ends up dying in police custody via a heart attack. Now, some people have heard different variations of how he died or whatnot, but they have definitely confirmed with an autopsy that it was a heart attack that ended up killing him, especially after all those years of drug use. Now, Marty Jesper doesn't believe that he is even dead. He believes that there's possibility that he may still be alive. He did say that on the night of his death, a promoter that was at the UWF show that they were having in South Carolina told him that he saw someone that looked just like Herb at the show and that was yelling and upset that they were running a UWF show without him, and he was wearing cowboy boots. Now, it's definitely have been confirmed that he did pass away. That person is probably just was seeing things. I honestly don't know how to explain that. Now, after that, one of his friends does end up acquiring the UWF, and by the end of 1996, it's over. There's no more UWF. And the same friend end up getting his dog. He had a white dog named Cokie. Can you believe that? That's absolutely insane. Now, look, I'm going to give Herb his props. Now, even though he was batshit crazy, I believe that he had a dream and he made it come to life. And it probably was more of a nightmare than a dream for most people. But he was able to do something with his life that he wanted to do. And unfortunately, just like other people in this business, those demons once again knocking up at the door and taking him out. Unfortunately, things ended up real bad for Herb. Now, it could have been so much better. Now, as far as UWF, it could have been successful had he had not tried to take things on his own. If he had gotten people who were successful in the wrestling business, who could have been able to help with the booking and help with these shows, Tony Khan, it would have been successful. And that's something that's going on with AEW right now. Tony needs to step the fuck back and let people with experience run the show. And I know we would be able to see a way more successful AEW. Guys, thanks so much for watching my review. This was a really interesting episode. It has definitely inspired me to buy the Herb Abrams books. It came out, a biography came out in 2021. So I'm buying the book so I can see what other crazy stories there are. Guys, thanks for watching. Bye.